The Manhattan skyline glittered like a sea of broken glass under the midnight sky. Wind whipped between the steel towers, carrying with it the restless hum of a city that never truly slept. Somewhere below, car horns blared and sirens wailed, but up here, 35 stories above the ground, the world felt unbearably silent. Madison Hale stood at the very edge of the rooftop, her heels just inches from nothingness. The lights of her own building, Hale and Carter Realty, glowed behind her, but their glow felt cruel, as if mocking her. Her phone buzzed in her hand for what must have been the 100th time that night. She didn't need to look. She already knew. Another investor pulling out. Another angry message from the board. Another reminder that her empire, the company her family had built for decades, was collapsing like sand in a storm tide. She squeezed her eyes shut. For 35 years, Madison had been told she was strong, ruthless, unshakable. But tonight she didn't feel like a CEO. She didn't feel like anything at all. She was just tired. So tired. Her fingers loosened around the phone. For a brief, dangerous moment, she imagined what it would be like to let go not just of the phone, but of everything. The debts, the headlines, the suffocating pressure from her mother Eleanor, who had reminded her again just hours ago that marrying Victor Stanton was the only way to keep the family legacy alive. Marry a man she didn't love. Sacrifice her freedom. For what? To save a company that no longer felt like hers. She leaned forward. The air was sharp, cutting against her cheeks. Below, the city looked almost peaceful. Maybe they'd all be better off without me, she whispered to the night. Or maybe a calm voice answered, you just haven't looked at it the right way yet. Madison spun around, startled. There he was standing a few yards away, the faint glow of the rooftop light outlining his figure. A man in a plain Navy work uniform, the kind of outfit you'd expect from a janitor or a night shift custodian. His hands were rough, a mop handle leaning against the wall behind him. He didn't look like anyone who belonged in the boardroom or on the rooftop of Manhattan's high society. And yet there was something about the steadiness in his eyes, the quiet authority in his posture, that made her pulse stumble. I didn't mean to intrude, he said softly, as if afraid any sudden movement might push her over the edge. I was finishing up on 34 and saw the door was open. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. Madison stiffened. I don't need a janitor checking on me. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile. Maybe not. But sometimes the people who don't know your world can see it clearer than those trapped inside it. She scoffed. What do you know about my world? About billion-dollar deals? About boardroom wars? About carrying the weight of a family name? The man didn't flinch. He simply stepped closer, but not too close. Just enough that she could see his eyes now, gray steady, weathered by something more than mops and buckets. I know what it looks like when someone is standing on a ledge, he said. I know the difference between someone who wants to jump and someone who's just waiting for a reason not to. For a moment, Madison couldn't breathe. She hated that he was right, hated even more that a stranger could read her so easily. He continued, his voice quiet but unshakable. You're not out of moves. Not yet. Madison barked a humorless laugh. Moves. I've tried everything. Loans, mergers, negotiations. It's over. The man shook his head. No, it's only over when you stop seeing options. And right now, you're blinded by fear. That's all. Something in his tone made her pause. This wasn't pity. This wasn't condescension. It was certainty, solid like bedrock beneath her feet. Against her will, she found herself asking, Then tell me, what do you think I should do? He looked out over the city as though the answer was etched into the lights below. 3 steps. First, find the leak. If your company is sinking this fast, someone's pulling the plug from the inside. Look at the books. Look at who benefits from your fall. Madison's throat tightened. She had suspected as much, but hearing it spoken aloud by a janitor no less made her pulse quicken. Second, he said, you stop begging the big players to throw you a rope. They'll strangle you with it. You look smaller. Community investors, short-term partnerships. You buy yourself time. Her mind raced. Community investors. No one in her world had suggested that. It sounded absurd and yet undeniably possible. And third, he turned his gaze back to her, steady and unyielding. You stop fighting alone. Even a CEO needs someone she can trust, not for their money, for their honesty. The words hit her harder than she expected. Madison opened her mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "Why are you telling me this? Why do you even care?" For the first time, his eyes softened. "Because I've been on the edge, too. And someone pulled me back." The silence that followed was heavy, almost sacred. Madison looked down at the streets far below, then back at him. For reasons she couldn't explain, the ledge felt a little less tempting now. She stepped away, her heels clicking softly on the concrete. When she finally turned, the man was gone. The mop leaned against the wall. The rooftop door was left slightly ajar, as if he had never been there at all. Madison exhaled shakily, clutching her phone to her chest. The city below still roared, her problems still loomed, but something had shifted inside her. A janitor of all people had just given her more clarity than the entire board of directors had in months. She didn't even know his name, but she knew this: she needed to see him again. And she needed to find out why a man who mopped floors spoke like a general who had survived 100 battles. Morning crawled into Manhattan like a fighter who'd gone 12 rounds and refused to sit down. The city was gray and bleary rain threatening, but undecided steam from subway grates curling up like unspoken words. Madison Hale pushed through the revolving doors of Hale & Carter with a paper cup of coffee and the dry taste of rooftop wind still in her mouth. Her phone vibrated nonstop. Board emails, press pings, a calendar reminder for dinner. Eleanor plus Victor. She let the reminder vanish. The rooftop conversation from last night kept replaying in her head, as clean and stubborn as a line of truth you couldn't unhear. 3 steps. She rode the elevator alone, watching her reflection wobble on the mirrored steel, a woman in a black blazer, hair in a decisive bun, eyes that hadn't slept. At floor 35, the doors opened to a lobby of glass and quiet money. The reception orchids didn't blink. The framed cover stories on the wall, Hale & Carter leads the skyline. Renaissance felt like yearbook photos from a previous life. "Good morning, Ms. Hale." The receptionist whispered it like a confession. Madison nodded and kept walking. In her office corner, South Light, she set the coffee down and pulled up the accounting portal. Her fingers found the keys, fast muscle memory from 1,000 late nights. The janitor's first step had been simple and ruthless. Find the leak. She pinged the controller, Sabrina Cho, on chat. Urgent pull, last 90 days AP ledger vendor roll-up, plus any change orders above $250K. Quietly, call it a compliance sweep, a typing bubble, then on it, 30 minutes. Madison exhaled. Outside her floor-to-ceiling window, a sliver of the East River flashed between buildings. She opened the board deck, scanned risk exposure slides she'd memorized weeks ago, and realized she was reading without seeing. The night shift man hadn't pitied her. He'd given her oxygen. Her intercom blinked. "Ms. Hale, Sabrina is here. Send her in." Sabrina slipped into the room with a tablet and 2 printed stacks clipped in sharp red. I marked the outliers. "Your compliance sweep buys us cover." "Good," Madison said. "Walk me through." Sabrina set the tablet on the desk and toggled to a heat map. Advisory retainers spiked. Payments to a boutique firm, Red Harbor Consultants, registered as crisis strategy fees. Tap. 6 invoices in 60 days. No deliverables attached. Who signed off? Executive VP of Strategy Lyle Porter. And initialed by CFO Pierce, Harold Pierce, loyal to Eleanor. Madison's jaw set. What else? Change orders on Riverside Commons. Inflated labor hours routed to a subcontractor called Cobalt Ridge. Shell company registered 6 months ago in Delaware. No past performance file. Sabrina looked up. And there's a timing thing. Every payment lands 48 hours after a negative press cycle or an investor call goes sideways. Like someone is monetizing your pain. A cold thread ran through Madison. "Look who benefits from your fall," the man had said. "Freeze outbound to Red Harbor and Cobalt Ridge," she said. "Today." Sabrina hesitated. CFO will throw a fit.